Welcome back. On a recent YouTube video, a subscriber left a comment and a question. I'm going to read it and we're going to unpack it today. Tracy, I have two grandchildren ages 4 and 7. My daughter and son-in-law do not discipline them. They don't set guidelines or boundaries, and there are no consequences for bad behavior. My husband and I don't say anything, but it is heartbreaking to watch, and we do not like being around the kids because of their behavior. How would you handle this situation? Thank you in advance for any suggestions. I just want to make a note of something real quick. Just because I don't really plan what I'm going to respond. I usually just know, and it comes off of however it comes out. Sometimes my approach is better than others, but I like just sharing what my heart is telling me or what the Lord is speaking to me at that time. I am first going to read my reply to you, and then we'll uncover it a little bit more. I put, you are doing the right thing by not speaking up. Now, let me just say, some would disagree. I'm sure some of you watching today would disagree with that, and that is okay. It is okay to have different opinions about different topics. I am sharing mine. While it's unfortunate the children are not learning how to be responsible for their actions and behavior, it's not your and your husband's place to say anything, and if you did, you may risk speaking up being held against you. There is a good chance that your daughter and son-in-law would see it differently and likely take offense. However, if the children are at your home and you have certain rules, example, maybe you have no shoes in the house or all food and drink stays in the kitchen and dining room area, the kids will honor and respect your wishes at the ages they are, because she shared that the children's ages were 4 and 7. So a 4 and 7-year-old are easily going to comply to any rules that are set in place in anyone's home. Things are ingrained to some capacity, but they are much less ingrained at this age than 14 and 17, where it would be hard just to remember to do these things. But let's proceed. As for not liking to be around the grandchildren, it makes sense because, as she said, it's heartbreaking for them. But it's not the kids' fault. They don't know any better if they are not being corrected or redirected. Sometimes that's what it is, just redirecting children. I wouldn't recommend missing these years just because their parents are not enforcing discipline and consequences to your liking. Try not to let it get to you, as it's counterproductive. Stay in your role of being a good grandmother with healthy boundaries so as to not be taken advantage of, and be a good role model. Well, this is not the first video that I have published on the topic of voicing our opinion, and that's exactly what it is. Our opinion may be different than someone else's. So please check out the videos that I have linked if you want to hear my message today expanded on. Here's the thing. Different generations raise children differently, and discipline and boundaries, consequences can look different from generation to generation. For example, I'm not a big fan of how my parents in that generation raised children. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't good parents and didn't provide for their children. But the landscape and language for most, not all, maybe your parents We're different because not everyone does parent the same, but there's trends. There's definitely trends. And I would be willing, most of you, if you really think about it, would agree that there's certain trends. There's different books and programs that come out at different times promoting different styles of raising children, and people partake in that. And some people literally go all in. The approach that is presented is exactly how they're going to raise their children. Many others will take pieces and then they will make it their own. I'll give you an example. I've always been a big fan of Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey's principles on finances. I think he is fantastic. He's a great speaker. He's a great leader, and I really am a fan of his principles. But that doesn't mean that all of Dave Ramsey's principles did we apply in our home. Many we did, but with our own spin on it. And that is really how I prefer to do pretty much anything, is I like to take the nuggets that I've learned, spend some time in contemplation, processing, thinking it through, and then coming up with my own style. Now, going back to when my parents raised children, and really even the generation before that, I'm not a fan of a lot of the communication skills that were enforced in the home because I felt like it was a little harsh and rough because we're going to make you strong. And I believe that was the landscape at that time. We're going to make you tough and resilient and hardworking and all of these things, but often the tone and the discipline was relatively harsh, and therefore a lot of people in my generation have a lot of maybe low self-esteem, anxiety, they're people pleasers, and many other unfortunate thoughts and feelings are left with my generation to contend with. And I know this because I work with many clients that I see in their relationships, in their own parenting, and how they achieve goals and how they view themselves often was formed way early on in their childhood. Okay, so that could be a topic for another day, and you'll have an opportunity in a group coaching setting to talk to me about some of that if you choose, and I'll have some more details to give you as well as some links to tap on in the description box to get a little bit more information. In the generation of parenting today, there is a term called gentle parenting, and I'm a little familiar with gentle parenting only because I have a couple of daughters who are parenting, and they have shared with me over the last several years or few years what gentle parenting is. Now, I cannot speak in depth about gentle parenting because I've never studied it in depth, but based on what I've heard, I feel like I like some of the characteristics of gentle parenting, but I would have to take it and make it my own. Now, if I were parenting today, which just because I have 5 grown children doesn't mean I'm not parenting, but I'm certainly not raising children anymore. As you know, if you follow me, my husband and I are empty nesters. All 5 of our daughters are adults. 3 of them are married and 2 parent. They are mothers. So we are no longer raising children. If I were today, I could see implementing some of that gentle parenting, but again, putting my own spin on it, probably based on the parenting I've done. So while I believe I parented my daughters well, I do believe I carried some of those parenting styles that I was raised with and my husband was raised with, and we enforced some of those principles, again, made them our own with our own children, where maybe I would have softened up a little bit in certain areas. At the end of the day, do I have any regrets on my parenting? No. But as I work with people and I have for about 17, 18 years, and seeing the adversities, hearing the adversities that I hear that's presented to me, and things that have shown up in my own life, I do believe I would do some things maybe a little softer. One of the biggest things is we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and we all want to be understood. Many of you were not raised in a home where you were seen, heard, and understood. Some of you probably were, but many weren't. And that is showing up today, even in your relationships today. So while I do feel my girls were seen, heard, and understood, not as much as I would ensure today they're seen, heard, and understood. Now, as adults, and me still parenting, but adult children, not raising, but I'm still a parent, I make sure I see my children, I hear my children, and I understand my children, and I desire the same from other people. I'm sure you would agree. Here's the thing. It is likely that the lady who reached out, and she did reply, and she really liked what I shared, and it confirmed to her they were doing the right thing by not speaking up. So she and her husband are doing the right thing by zipping it. W-A-I-T-Y am I talking, right? Because if her daughter and son-in-law were incorporating gentle parenting, you better believe that many grandparents of today are going to look at that as these children are not being disciplined, consequences are not being enforced, and it's really just a different style of parenting. So the actual parents raising the children, they are doing exactly what they intend to do, which is different than what you did. And what happens with many baby boomers and Gen X generations, and probably even before that, is many, and I hear this in coaching, I hear it in conversation, especially with baby boomers. I hear it more with the baby boomers than I do the Gen X, but I hear it from both. And I'm a Gen X, so I'm not knocking us. We only do what we know to do, right? But so many talk about how they did things as if that's how it should be done today, especially the baby boomers. Well, we did it this way. Well, our kids turned out fine, and da-da-da-da. And they're very verbal and very vocal about it, at least the baby boomers and Gen Xers I'm around and coach. And again, you heard that. Your parents did that. So it was just the baton was passed. The baton was passed. But when you hear the little messages about generational curses need to be broke, I'm sure a lot of baby boomer and Gen X roll their eyes at that because they're so set in their ways. And I believe all people can stand to do the work, But we have to be aware of the work that we need to do. And telling our children or anyone how you did it, number one, no one wants to hear because we already know how you did it, and how you did it wasn't all that successful because so many people have mental health issues today, and believe it or not, it's coming from the home environment we were raised in, even if it was a good home. Okay, that doesn't mean we didn't have good parents. It doesn't mean they weren't loving. It's just the messages and the way they were communicated and enforced left a lot of people with depressive characteristics, anxiety, people-pleasing, not seeing your worth and value, not stepping into your power because you don't believe in yourself or you were never good enough. So I can't really say that this message today is going so much about the topic of voicing your opinion, so check out those videos. It's laying a landscape for you to think about yourself, the season you're in, whatever that is, and how what you do today is influenced by what is out there today. Hopefully biblical teachings. Hopefully biblical teachings, because if we do go back to the biblical teachings, that's a great guidance for you. But being seen, being heard, and being understood, number one, you better believe is speaking truth. And it's stewarding words over yourself and loved ones that speak truth, that speak love, and speak conviction in biblical teachings. But we are influenced by what the world is saying. Many are, and that is natural. And so you have to understand that when you parented, a lot of the landscape of your parenting came from that style. You're around other people parenting, so you're picking up on one another, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, right? Or you're carrying characteristics about how you were parented, what the discipline was in your home, what the consequences look like in your home, and you're instilling them instead of taking them and making them yours. Also, when you marry, you're bringing in two people, joining them in union together to now parent their children, and you may have two different styles. So while my husband and I had a lot of similar upbringing dynamics in styles, because our parents were in the same generation, we're in the same generation, there may have been a few differences. I would say we both were raised in, we're going to make you tough. You're going to be tough people. We were both raised in that type of home environment. Discipline was enforced, often harsher than probably what it should have been, and certainly would be not acceptable today. So again, another whole language. Spanking, for example, in generations past was a very popular form of discipline called punishment, right? And that was perfectly acceptable, where today I would say I wouldn't risk spanking your children in public because it is very frowned upon in this day and age. So if you came from the era where spanking was the form of punishment and you turned out okay, well, let's just really ask yourself, are you really okay? That's the big, hairy, audacious question. Are you really okay? Or what are some of your insecurities, issues today that could have been instilled in the home? Well, who knows where this video is going, but that's what I like about my ministry, my message, is it's really coming from my heart and my observations, not only in being me, but in my many years of observing others and working with people. So at the end of the day, it is not our place to speak up how to do something as personal as parenting, and also recognize your adult children who are parents, perhaps. You may not like their style of enforcing consequences in discipline and redirecting or correcting behavior in children. But is it because it's different than what you did and all these people seem to turn out okay? Is it that? Is it the power struggle? Because often I feel like that's what it is. And that's because so many people of certain generations actually do have a lot of insecurities. So to cover them, that's how we did it. Well, we all turned out fine. Well, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, oh, behind your mask, you're really a very insecure person, right? Because if you were confident, you wouldn't need to be so boisterous about your thoughts and opinions, right? Because confidence whispers, insecurity roars. Right? So that's another, put it on a note card. Confidence whispers, insecurity roars. So I believe they are doing the right thing. Share with me in the comment section below how you feel about the topic. Do you feel it's your place to speak up if you see a discrepancy in how your adult children are parenting their children? Do you feel you have a place? Or have you ever voiced your opinion and you found it wasn't received well? Again, you do risk your adult children taking offense because in their mind, it could be they're doing everything right. And I think in this case, it could very likely be possible. I have 2 daughters who parent. And while their children are very young, they both do a phenomenal job, and they have a lot of mothering characteristics that remind me of how I parented. They read to their children a lot. They are very disciplined about teaching them. So I do foresee my grandchildren that I currently have to probably do well academically because they are being read to a lot. They are working in a lot of hands-on type things that instill learning, troubleshooting, skills that they will need academically, including in life skills. And other areas I see similarities, but that doesn't mean in all areas. I was kind of a neat, clean, your hands were always washed. I didn't like my kids to go around and about barefooted. You always had shoes on, maybe. I wasn't the one to let my kids eat throughout the house. And sometimes, even when we have get-togethers, you'll see younger kids that may be at our get-togethers, just freewheeling it. And it's because in their home they get to, so they wouldn't know any different. The other thing is never hold it against the child. If you've ever heard someone say, oh, such a bratty kid, well, bratty kids often are coming from something else, something else in the home. It could be lack of discipline. We don't know. But the key is that we're just not holding it against anyone. Parenting is hard. I think it often is touted as harder than it needs to be because we complicate it or we don't have the confidence in how we're parenting again. And that could be coming from the messages we picked up in our own home just about not being good enough in general, never doing enough, never doing it right. So this is a great conversation. I love speaking on topics like this because there's no real right or wrong answer, and different people will have a different opinion. The other thing that I kind of noted is, have you ever had a situation where you didn't like being around certain kids because of their behavior? I mean, I remember that even raising my own daughters, there were certain other kids I just didn't really enjoy being around because in my mind, right? In my mind, this doesn't mean it's truth, but in my mind, my kids were well behaved and these kids weren't. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sure I was doing some judging. I was judging the parents as not doing a good job. Who's running the roost? Who's running the home, right? But I'm sure those kids turned out to be wonderful adults in their own way. So there's never a right or wrong. It's the style that you and your spouse come together with and decide what is going to be your method for raising your children, what the landscape, the language is going to look like, and what discipline and consequences look like. I also have many videos. They may be older, but I'm sure the principles still apply, where I talk about raising children, as you know, raised 5, and discipline and consequences. I used to do a lot of Q&A videos addressing and covering such topics about how we did things. And I'm not saying how we did anything was the right way. It was what we knew at that time and it felt right. And that's exactly what I would encourage you to do. What feels right to you? And that's the way you do it. And if you're in a season where you're done raising children, but your adult children are there and you're not seeing everything that is to your liking, you need to let them parent their own style, just like you had the freedom to do when you were raising children. So weigh in, would love to know what you have to contribute. And I have a couple of group coaching opportunities coming up just to chat on topics like this, talk about marriage, menopause, whatever you would like to. These group coaching sessions will be held live and they will not be recorded to be viewed later, so you would have to attend the live. And that is because in these group coaching sessions, topics come up that are quite personal, and it's in the best interest of those that attend that there are no recordings, but attending the live is the setup. To be able to hit all of those interested in different time zones, because I do get a lot of traffic from my international viewers, I will have a weekend live coaching, and then I will have an evening live coaching if you live in the States and you wouldn't be able to attend until you get out of work. So in the description box below will be a link where you can get to the page if you would like to join that live group coaching. They will take place on Zoom. Please bring your topic or questions. They can be on relationships, marriage, raising children. It will be a nice variety, and it will be nice to hear other people weigh in if they desire. As you know, my husband and I just celebrated 33 years of marriage, and we've raised 5 beautiful daughters. We are now empty nesters. We are together in the home full time, which has been very interesting. We are about 1.5 years at being in the home together, as my husband retired after 36 years of being employed at a large corporation. He now does some of his own work, but we both work from home. So that landscape has been interesting, and I will talk more about that in the video coming up, and I'd be happy to share more personal stuff in the live group coaching. So again, I highly encourage you. Group coaching is wonderful. It's an opportunity for you to take advantage of sharing if you would like, listening if that's all you come for, because you're going to gain a lot just by listening to the people that do ask questions or share. It's a great savings. It's an opportunity to get in with a coach who can be hard to get into, like me, where you would be looking at probably a couple of months out. So if you want to tap into that, a great opportunity. All right. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to weigh in, and don't forget to check out the video library where I share messages on topics like voicing your opinion, raising children, discipline, consequences, and all the above. Maybe watch those and bring whatever comes up for you to the live group coaching. All right, take care.